today's episode, we're going to knock out a couple DIY projects on the SLR. Then we're going to take it over to my friends at HG and we're going to have them do service A. So everyone says all the services are so expensive and it's so difficult to own. Let's figure out if that's true. I'm also going to chat with McLaren about the MSO program. We're going to chat to Renntech about their tuning program. Let's just figure out what kind of aftermarket support there is, as well as any support besides just going to this dealership. So stay tuned. It's the first time I've really had to do any maintenance on this car. It doesn't really need it other than the oil change is needed based on time, not based on miles. So let's take care of the car and hope it treats me that way in return. So let's start with some DIY fixes here. I am not a mechanic. This isn't really a robust set of tools. But these are things you can do just on your own, replacing buttons and wear items inside. It's largely a Mercedes. I'm going to do the door struts because they have a little bit of a problem getting up when you need to. So it's not a big deal. I just figure you might as well. It's a wear item for a car almost 20 years old. I'm also going to replace a missing button, fix a door sill, just a couple little things here and there that are normal wear and tear that I'm not that worried about. We got the Stablist Mercedes part number, about half off from Dubai than it was in the US. All right, Ryder. You want to help me install these, buddy?
Dad, what is this?
It's to hold the doors up better. Let's try it. Okay, that did not go well. That door is a lot heavier than you would think. And I'm bleeding out of my skull. So I think that's a two-man job moving forward. This is what I was using to hold it up. Sick. Fail safe this time so I don't bump my head again. That was pretty awful. Much better, that saved my head. So dramatic reenactment here of what that looked like without it. Basically I was working on it like this and then it popped down on my head like that, but on the edge. So it caused a little bleeding and a little concussion, or maybe not a concussion, but felt like one. And a nice video of the door going up. Feel it all on its own and all the way up versus what happens on the weak ones. Literally nothing. And what's beautiful here is that this switch that I'm missing is off of a SL500. So unlike the Murciélago, where a part like that would cost me $600–700 and come from Italy, I was able to buy this on eBay for like 30 bucks. So pretty awesome. And just like that, the only noticeable flaw is fixed. This actually tucked back in without needing to glue it. I probably will glue it, but dang, does this look good. And we had to do it. Let's see here. Box and papers. And the SLR watch. Let's bring it over here. So it says SLR right there, which is cool. With the vents, that's what sells it. Right like that, huh? How cool. Here we go again on our own. This shouldn't have any problem smogging or passing since it's fully stock, but it's a weird enough car, we'll see. We passed Smog, which is really no surprise. It's just a Mercedes after all, no mods, but you never know in California. So thankfully right afterwards I went to AAA, which again, no big deal. If you're not a member, this is not sponsored, but they save you a lot of time. I just went in and 10 minutes later, walked out with a license plate. So we have the last vestige of Heuer coming off here, and we are officially official in the state of California. Next, we're going to take it over to HG Motorsports, my local indie that specializes in Mercedes, among other cars. They actually have an SLR trained tech, and my boy Phil has worked there many years. He's an enthusiast and is going to take care of me. So pretty excited for them to dig in and see everything they could find. As we know, this car's been passed around a lot and not driven much. I got it with only 4,800 miles. So Heuer said it was last serviced about a year ago by the Car Wizard in Kansas. They did an oil change and anything it needed then, but hasn't really been to like an SLR trained tech in a bit. So we'll see, is there any fire damage? Is there any issues? What's most well known about these cars is that you got to rack them right. You got to take off a lot of things. So it's not as simple as your quickie lube here where you just pop open a drain plug and put in new oil, but also not that complicated at the end of the day either. It is just a Mercedes, as they might say. So here you can see some B-roll. The guys just tearing the car apart and having some fun with it. And just 24 hours later, I got the call saying it's all ready for pickup, Mr. Roshon. All right, and I just got off the phone with my service advisor, Phil. He went over everything wrong with the car, which is very little. The brake fluid was tremendously dirty. He said some of the dirtiest he's ever seen. So we're gonna do that, which was 320 bucks. Pretty much what I paid for this car to have its brake fluid flushed. So like pretty standard. They are going to replace the two front tires. I had a leak in one tire from running over a nail. Literally every car I own has got a nail in it in the last 6 months, so there's something going on in the neighborhood or nearby street. I digress. We're doing two new front tires. Those are Michelin. They cost the same whether it's a McLaren, a Mercedes, or a Peugeot. So that's going to be about $300 a tire plus mount and balance. Service A, exactly what they said it would cost. It's fancy oil change, about $1,200. We're picking up the car from HG. This was no different than servicing any other car. I dropped it off yesterday. I'm picking it up today. We did an oil change, got the tire sorted. I'll go over the bill here in a second, but couldn't have been easier. So all this SLR maintenance myths, feeling like bullshit right now. And a little candy here in the parking lot. This incredibly modded wide body GTC, Canon's S65, which you may recognize, and the GOAT, a second SLR. All right, so picking it up. Why don't you go over the bill? I tried to do it on my own, but you know what you're talking about.
Hey guys, my name is Phil. I'm the manager at HG Performance. Nick is a friend of mine, and we helped him out with his SLR service. It was a pretty basic service, so we did a service on the car.
Why do they call it that? Why don't they just say an oil change?
It should just be an oil change.
Okay.
Mercedes has to make their fancy terminology.
It's so that they can charge you 10 grand for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They hide it. If they call it an oil service, how are they going to charge you 3 grand for an oil service? So on the SLRs, typically it's about 3 grand for an A service from the dealer these days. Our pricing is a little bit better than that, and it's still a pretty straightforward service. It's just an oil service and a full vehicle inspection. There's a pretty big checklist that Mercedes wants you to go through for depending on what vehicle it is. So we got the SLR checklist, so we went through that all, make sure everything is good. Luckily, Nick bought a good car. This car checked out wonderfully.
Thanks, Ovi.
Which is great news. Besides that, a couple other basic services we did. We did a brake fluid flush. You want to make sure on these cars you do brake fluid flushes pretty regularly. You don't want to go high in the moisture level because it is a system that definitely gets affected by having too much moisture. Corrosion is a problem on SLR brake systems. And so you want to make sure you want to stay below 2% moisture if possible. So got the brake fluid flush done. We got some fresh tires on the car.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That's pretty much it. So it was a pretty basic service, and the good news is this car came in and it was already in great shape, so it didn't need much.
And then you guys pulled out my dent.
Yes, we just pulled out the dent. Alan, our shop foreman, was the one that worked on Nick's vehicle this visit, and yeah, it was all in all a not too bad of a job. People are scared to own these cars, but you really shouldn't be scared. You just need to find a shop that is confident in working on this stuff. One of the biggest things is racking and unracking this car. You have to be very careful.
So now that we know that the initial maintenance and servicing isn't going to be nearly as expensive as I thought, we got some money to play with here. In fact, this car is so much cheaper to own than my Bentley that I feel like I just don't even know what to do with myself. Frankly, it's cheaper to own than my P38, but let's not go there. So option one on the table here, Renntech makes a package here. It's basically a tune and a pulley and a couple other little things you can see here, but and intercooler upgrades, but nothing too crazy, but it bumps you up to 722 horsepower. So the car does not need more power, but also like you can do it, and that would be really fun to have an extra 100 horsepower and 140 torque. Pretty freaking nuts. So I'm a little tempted by this. The install is also not bad. So all in, this will be like $10,000–$11,000. I'm reluctant to do it mostly because that's also the cost of a project vehicle. Like I could get a Multipla or any number of other fun cars. So, or frankly, another P38. So I think I'm going to hold off on it because it doesn't need the power. I worry a little bit about resale value. I doubt it hurts. It probably doesn't help. But most importantly, I just could find better uses for 10 grand. But still a pretty exciting opportunity. Last but not least, I found someone who was able to leak me this document. I'm not sure I'm supposed to have it. So for that reason alone, I will protect the innocent here. But the MSO program, I got a little information on it. It's roughly $300,000 US. I don't know if that includes shipping or not, but let's just, at that point, it's sort of a rounding error. Obviously, I'm not doing this, but it comes with a bunch of aero rework. So I was curious what was even in the program. The aero package, I frankly don't like. There's the wide body one, as well as just sort of the one that looks a little bit more like a 722 with the front lip and so on. But either way, it totally reworked the aero. They then repaint the entire car and retrim it is what they're calling it here. So a full repaint in any approved color, interior Alcantara retrim, and a choice of wheel color. They changed the wheels, which I think is a big mistake. I prefer the stock wheels, but you do get new wheels. They do rework the suspension. I think of all the things they do, this one's the most appealing. They lower it just a touch. They widen it just a touch, and better springs and dampers. They do an exhaust. Renntech also makes an exhaust for about $3,000. So maybe theirs is better. I don't know. I frankly like the induction noises, so I worry about any exhaust tinkering, just canceling out some of that and making it more brutish and loud. And then, yeah, you get some badging and a build number. So really, to me, this is like when I modified cars back in the day. A body kit, wheels, you lower it and redo the interior. $300,000 because it's done by McLaren. Pretty cool. I just don't like how it comes out. I think it's, frankly, like I'd prefer to have a stock one in terms of how it looks. It would be cool to get the interior redone maybe one day, and like I have seen some of those come out nicely, but otherwise not terribly interested. I was hoping they would rework the brakes, since that seems to be one of the low points, or redo the transmission to give it TCU tune or something to make it shift better. Frankly, they don't even really add any power here. Maybe the exhaust does some. It's claiming the air filter maybe also helps, but like kind of give me a break here. I'd rather spend $10,000 on the Renntech package than $300,000 for a body kit and a lowering kit. So that's the McLaren package. So there you have it. The DIY fixes were very DIY-able. Service A and the mechanic tune-ups were very reasonable for an exotic car of this level. So here's the real perspective shift, all right? The Murciélago, which is my comparison point here, they had gone through many owners. They've all been driven hard, put away wet. A lot of them have checkered history, questionable mods, etc. And most of them have decent miles because it's such a fun, rewarding driver's car. And Lambo owners tend to like to go out and flex and rev their engines and so on. The SLR, on the other hand, its bad reputation has now worked in its advantage. The previous owners were afraid to put miles on them, so most of the ones for sale have barely been driven. When they were driven, they were so afraid of something breaking, yet alone the actual brakes, that they barely drove them hard, they put them away delicately, they were really careful on service, they wanted to avoid that $100,000 brake job no matter what. So as it turns now, in 2025, all the SLRs have been used very delicately and sparingly and proactively maintained, and a lot of the Mercies that went through a low point where, frankly, you could buy a Mercy not that long ago for barely $100,000, those had been driven really hard and maintained really poorly. So if you buy an SLR now, chances are it's low miles, it's well maintained. You could find a Mercedes dealership just about anywhere, and frankly, you could find a McLaren dealership just about anywhere now. So the SLRs are actually in really good shape with very little deferred maintenance. And I don't think it's the SLR or the Mercy you got to worry about. It's deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance is what made my Renage so painful. It's what's made both of my P38s kind of expensive. It wasn't that the cars are necessarily bad or good. There are varying degrees of that. But it's just that if an owner keeps driving it and putting on more and more miles without addressing things, those little things pile up and have downstream effects where one thing broke in makes the other components work harder to compensate, and before you know it, the whole car is hanging on by a thread. So SLRs to me are actually a great buy right now because people are so careful and meticulous with them. And a lot of other cars that have gotten cheap relative to their MSRP are being passed around like hotcakes with everyone kicking the maintenance down the road and can actually end up being very expensive. So my aha moment, and I hope I still feel this way in a year, is that the SLR is actually great for maintenance because a Mercedes tech can service it, because parts are available, and because by and large, very few of them have deferred maintenance. Most have been kept well and driven gently. So now that we've got all that out of the way, let's talk about future plans for the car. I might mod it, as you heard me go over. The Renntech kit is appealing, a manual swap is appealing, and so, well, the MSO program really isn't, but it's there anyways. I could also do some things on my own, Frankly, I mostly just want to drive it for another 6 to 12 months before deciding on a manual swap or power boosters. I need to fully normalize and kind of get bored with the car as is before I'm ready to spice it up, and I'm just not there yet. So my plan is to keep it alone. I am potentially looking for an SL55 or a car with a similar powertrain that I could manual swap that first, go through the process, learn as much as I can. I would then flip that car, but it would sort of be my guinea pig before going all in on an SLR. A lot of people feel like the SLR is better as an automatic. I'm not sure I agree, but I also don't have any real world experience to say otherwise. So I feel like an SL55 or anything with an M113K that's been manual swapped would be a good data point. Then I would just have to imagine a little extra power, or maybe I find a Renntech tuned one that's, again, not the same, but not so dissimilar that I wouldn't be able to extrapolate from there. So that's my plans with the SLR. I'm also looking for other project cars. The Multiple is going to sell in January. The Bentley's long gone. The P38 I'm going to keep around for a while. I'm having too much fun with it, but it's been a lot of fun. Next week is Christmas week already somehow, so happy holidays to everyone who celebrates. Thanks for checking out my videos and stay tuned for more.